Hello and welcome to Jikoni Magic's Meza. Today I'm going to be making bell peppers. Not just any bell peppers, but stuffed bell peppers. I know you're going to enjoy this, so let's get started. To my preheated pan, I added 2 tablespoons of sunflower oil. Swirled them around a bit just to make sure that the bottom of the pan was coated. And then I added 1 medium-sized onion that I had finely minced along with 1 green chili. Now the green chili is just for the aroma and the flavor. If you want your food spicier, go ahead and add more. So after stirring and ensuring that the onion was well coated with the oil, I added 1 tablespoon of curry powder. And then I proceeded to cook the onions until they just turned translucent. I didn't want them to have any color. At this point, I added a mixture of 3 cloves of garlic and 2-inch ginger that I had finely minced. Cook them off for about a minute until they released their very nice aroma. And then next, I added 1/4 kg of minced beef together with 3 beef sausages that I had peeled off the casing. And then I proceeded to stir and mix and make sure that the meat was all broken down and that it was not forming lumps. I wanted it to be separate. And then at this point, I added salt to taste and freshly cracked black pepper. And then after mixing everything in, I reduced the heat and then left the meat to brown and cook. So as the meat was cooking, I prepared my hohos by first of all cutting off the top part and getting rid of it, and then removing all the other bits from the inside, that is the seeds and the reeds. And please make sure that you do not end up poking your hoho like I accidentally did, and I didn't realize this until after the hohos were cooked. You'll see that much later on in the video. So here are my hohos, 3 of them, 2 big red hohos and 1 small yellow one. So the next thing was to prepare my hohos by immersing them in water that was almost boiling. This helps in softening them and ensuring that they cook evenly. And at the top there, you can see that I was multitasking as I was checking on my meat so that it wouldn't burn. And once I was satisfied that it wasn't going to burn, I came back to my hohos and turned them over to the second side. This was after like about 3 minutes or so. And after another 3 minutes, I came and removed the yellow hoho because it had softened enough to the point where I wanted it to be. It was not completely cooked, but it was pliable, and I gave the red hohos an extra 3 more minutes for them to soften to the point where I wanted them to be, and then I kept them aside for them to cool down. And as they were cooling down, the next thing that I did was to prepare my tomato sauce. So to my sufuria, I added about 2 tablespoons of sunflower oil, followed by 1 medium-sized onion that was finely minced. I cooked it for about 3 minutes until it turned translucent. And then I added a mixture of 3 cloves of garlic and a 2-inch ginger root that were finely minced. I mixed everything in and then added 1 tablespoon of curry powder. Then cooked the whole thing off for about a minute. Before adding 3 very large and very ripe tomatoes, and then stirred them for just about a minute to get things going. After which I added salt to taste and freshly cracked black pepper. Now the thing here is I wanted the tomatoes to cook slow and gentle for them to break down and release their juices so that the sauce would come off being thick. Now what will happen when you cook your tomatoes on high heat? They're going to dry up and you'll be forced to add more water, and this will not result in you having very nice tomato flavor in your sauce. So then I covered the tomato sauce, and after 5 minutes, this is what everything was looking like. As you can see, the tomatoes have really broken down and they've released their juices. So at this point, I added Royco, and please remember Royco is totally optional. You don't have to add it, but I like it because of the flavor. And I also added a bit of water because, as you can see, the tomatoes had started sticking to the sufuria, especially when you look at the very top over there when I'm stirring. They were starting to stick and I didn't want them to burn. So the water helped the tomatoes to simmer gently for an extra 5 minutes and for the Royco to also cook. And after the 5 minutes, this is how everything was looking. And as you can see, the sauce was quite thick with some tomato chunks here and there, but that was okay. So the next thing was to prepare my sufuria oven, and I've already added a cup of regular iodized cooking salt, which I have flattened out for it to lay flat. And then I placed an old sufuria lid on the salt, followed by another smooth and flat sufuria lid. Then I covered the whole sufuria with a tight-fitting lid to create that oven-like effect. And then I placed it on the cooker on very high heat for 15 minutes. So as the sufuria oven was warming up, I started working on my stuffing. So I added the cooked meat to my mixing bowl. And to that I added a half cup each of cheddar and mozzarella cheese, followed by a bunch of dania leaves, a quarter cup of leftover rice, and about 3 tablespoons of barbecue sauce. Followed by freshly squeezed juice of 1 lemon. You could also use ukwaju or tamarind sauce. I already have a video recipe up on my site on how you could make the tamarind sauce, so go ahead and check it out and you'll be sorted. So after this, all I did was mix everything together, and once it was all mixed in, I gave it a taste, but then I felt like something was lacking, so I went ahead and added a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce and about a tablespoon of barbecue sauce because I felt like its flavor had not come through as much as I had wanted it to, and also that sweetness that results from barbecue sauce was not coming through as it should have. So then I mixed everything up again, and after mixing it, I gave it one final taste, and I was satisfied with the way the flavors were balanced, and I proceeded to stuff my hohos. Now it's important when you're stuffing your hohos to ensure that you really press your mixture down tightly. Make sure that it's firmly pressed in there, because once you serve the hohos and people cut into them, they will fall apart and it will not be a very good sight. Okay, so just make sure that you press everything and you take your time when stuffing these hohos. So here I am stuffing the very last hoho. The entire mixture fitted in these 3 hohos. So you can imagine how tightly packed the hohos were. So once I finished stuffing my hohos, the next thing that I did was to pour in a bit of my sauce into my baking tin, spreading it around. I didn't pour everything. I made sure that I left a bit of it in the sufuria for the next step, which I'll show you in just a bit. So after I was satisfied with the amount that was in the baking tin, I took my hohos and placed them on the tomato sauce and made sure that they were standing properly and they were not leaning too much in one direction. So once I was satisfied, I took a tablespoon of the tomato sauce and poured it on top of the hohos, and then I took more of that mixture of mozzarella and cheddar cheese and placed it on top of the stuffed hohos. Now the amount that you place on top of the hohos is totally up to you, and then as a finishing touch, I sprinkled a bit of dry mixed herbs on top of the cheese. You don't have to put the mixed herbs, but it will enhance the flavors. So next I placed my hohos into the preheated sufuria oven. It had already heated up for 15 minutes. Made sure that everything was standing properly, and then I covered it immediately to preserve as much of the hot air as I possibly could, and then reduced the heat to medium-low. Baked the hohos for about 40 minutes, and this is how everything looked like after the 40 minutes. As you can see, the cheese had already melted and the tomato sauce had really simmered reduced and thickened to a very nice consistency, and it was full of flavor at this point. And here, as you can see, is the hoho that I ended up accidentally poking, and I didn't realize until everything had already cooked. And so the next thing that I did was serve the hohos. Let me do a 360 for you so that you can see how the hohos look like. The one that split open is here, as you can see. Didn't want to hide it and pretend that it didn't happen. And now let me use the hoho that didn't split up to show you how the inside should come out looking like. Okay, and also remember that the hoho is very delicate at this point, and as you can see, the stuffing stays in one place, it doesn't fall apart. And I also like sprinkling some more of that yummy tomato sauce on top of the hohos. Remember, flavor. If you have any questions, opinions, comments, please leave them in the comment section down below. I'm always happy to hear from you. If you've liked this recipe enough to try it out, please tag me on any of my social media sites. And until next time, for more recipes, please keep it Jikoni magic. Goodbye.